Hey, many of you know I was slinging burgers before I learned how to make a quilt, and so today I'm going to marry both of my loves. In the textiles and in the food world, we're making this really cool pot holder with my hand grip inside. Let's get started. Yes, as a matter of fact, we are making a pot holder today, but if you want, you can also make a really cool like trivet or a little hot pad for your table. I was experimenting with some prototype sizes, and my first one I started with my 10 by 10 pre-cut, but the pot holder we're gonna make today is actually an 8 by 8 cut down. So if you wanna do a big one, start with your 10 by 10s, follow the exact same steps, just adjust the size a little bit. Now, before I dive into the construction steps, a really fun line I just found. This is the Wildflower Farm by Studio E, and it's a really great collection of a bunch of fun little kind of modern farm prints. And so I've played with a bunch of different ones, and in creating the pot holders, we're going to use two different prints. We're going to have finished edges all the way around, so I'm going to have different prints for the sleeve as well as for the pot holder. So for that, what we're going to use today is these fun little pigs, right? Like I'm a pig in the kitchen. So here's my 10s. And so all we need to do to make the actual pot holder size is I have taken a second and I've made sure that everything's lined up here. And I'm going to cut 2 inches off of one side here. I'm going to rotate this and I'm going to cut 2 inches off this other side, effectively bringing it to an 8 by 8 square. And if you didn't catch that in the math I was doing, I want you to do it, and we're going to have 4 pieces of fabric that we're doing it with. And then what we're going to do is we also need some Insul-Bright. Now, Insul-Bright is a batting with kind of metallic reflective in there. Hopefully you can see that. I want you to cut yourself 3 squares of it, and those are 7.5 by 7.5, or technically a ½ inch smaller, so that they fit in and they don't bulk up our seams. 2 of them are going to be used for the body of the pot holder, and the third one I want you to take and then I want you to cut on the diagonal just like this, because we're going to put 1 layer each into our back sleeve portion right here, or a little cover for our hand. So let's start on that portion of what we're doing. And if I didn't mention already, it's in my hand. I don't think I invited you. I've got the information and instructions in the free printable link. That's just down in the description. So there's everything I'm about to say as we're going today. Now I can set that out aside. Now what I want to do is I want to create like a triangle on the top to be that sleeve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these triangles of the Insul-Bright, and then I'm going to lay it in there and I'm going to fold this over just like this. And then I'm going to take one of the squares, it's going to be the outside body of my pig fabric. I want to make sure I did cut everything. Sometimes I go so fast I get a little ahead of myself. And this is going to lay right now, right sides up onto the right sides of. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take back this corner here. And we're going to do a little bit less than a 1/4 inch seam allowance, because I'm going to use my quarter later on to catch this. And so that way my threads don't show. Just going to line this up, and I'm basically going to baste stitch this triangle here from the corner up to the point with just less than a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to come back around here, and I like to sew from that same point. So I've now flipped the work over. So now I'm lining this up over here. We're going to sew this down real simple. And now I'm going to do the same to the other side. So where's one of my other little piggies there? Okay, so remember it was right sides down, wrong sides up. We're going to lay this right on the bias as it was made there, fold it over like this. And now I want to come to my machine again, raw edges on the raw edges. And I'm going to, again, start at the corner that makes my life the most easy. So back up here where I can see the tip on the tip, less than 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now that has effectively created this back sleeve section here. So now all we need to do is prepare the front of the pot holder. So what I want to do here is I'm going to use another one of my dark pig fabrics. And I'm using 2 layers of the Insul-Bright. And they are slightly smaller, so they're 1/2 inch smaller all the way around. So I want to kind of baste these, but make it look like it was quilted into place. So we're going to do some straight line stitching across here. So for a second, I just need to get my edge guide out of the way. And I'm just going to let this go through. I've got a little bit of pressure back here on this back corner, just kind of eyeballing that stitch. Of course, you could have drawn that line in if you felt more comfortable. But I like to stitch on this side. That way my feed dogs are effectively touching the fabric, not the batting or the Insul-Bright there. Now we're going to do the same thing from this corner. Just across like this. Okay, now fantastic. So now the front side, or the part that'll touch the hot part, is ready to go. So now what we want to do is we want to go technically right sides together here, and we want to go right sides together this way, and we're going to sew around this about 75% of the way. We're going to leave a little opening where we can get our hands out for the top stitching, and I'm going to leave that opening here where everything else is finished stitched. I'm going to flip it over, so I'm going to start about 1 inch away from the corner, and I'm going to sew to that corner so that I don't have to worry about any of the corners while I'm doing my finishing. Let's lock this awesome edge guide back down. I prefer the bolt down style because it doesn't move. A lot of us have the magnetic side, which is also a good one to use too. Okay, so now I'm stitching around. I'm going to sew all the way off of the edge. I'm going to rotate, bring it back around, just lining up all of those lines down here. And here we go. It's a little thick, so make sure you're catching all of the edges of your fabric. I'm not really concerned if you're catching the edge of the Insul-Bright. I hope you're not, actually. Coming around to the second full side. You can see the Insul-Bright lifting up. That's why we did that cross stitch across the center. Oops, and I just broke my thread. So I'm just gonna thread this up real quick here. And I did that because I pivoted, but I didn't finish the stitch first. I could hear it. I was hoping I'd get away with it. Just thread that up real quick. Easy. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead, make sure we're ready to rock again. Back stitch to secure. Making sure I catch all of the fabric I need as I go around. And I'm coming off. Now I'm on that 4th side, so I've already done this little inch. I'm going to do a couple of inches here. Couple of inches, and then I'm going to lock it down to secure it so that I can come in here. Now before I go right sides out, I've gotten real into dog-earing my corner, so I'm just cutting through not the cross of the threads, just before the cross in the threads. That helps get some of that extra thickness out of the corners. Get some of that extra stuff out of my way there. And then here's my opening. I'm just going to come in here, kind of using my thumbs to get a little firm with it if I need to. And I can push into these wonderful corners. And we have no raw edges. We've got that wonderful multiple layers of the Insul-Bright in there. Coming around here, and you can see my hand is still in that opening. So as I kind of pull on it, the edges are going to kind of lock themselves down. And now all we have to do is come back to the machine and do a little top stitching, and we are all done with this. So I'm just going to take a second and make it look a little bit more crisp before I get started here, because this is the last step in today's tutorial. Now for this, because I have a lot of thickness, I don't usually top stitch with my edge guide on, but I'm going to slide my edge guide in a little bit closer. And I am not starting on the side where my opening is. I want to get a head start. So I'm going to take a couple stitches just after I got over that corner. And I'm just coming around here. And I'm going to come around, and now as I roll around, kind of a fun little curve here, now I'm on the edge where the opening is. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to tuck the first edge up over the Insul-Bright, the other edge underneath it, so I don't get anything popping out there, little surprises later. And we're just going to stitch that all closed. Boy, and I just wish I had one of those pre-canned dings from the oven door, so I'd say, hey, the casserole's ready now, time to go get it out of the oven, because we've got one of these perfect pot holders all finished up with our little grippers and ready to go. Just have a little thread to trim out there. So this is a super fun and easy project, and I did really test it. I got this thing super hot. I don't recommend this at home, right? But those twin layers in there, and then I sat there with that hot iron in my hand, making sure that we could get the casserole all the way from the oven over to the counter before we serve that fantastic meal. So yes, it's a fantastic pot holder. Make sure you use 2 layers in there so that you're not sweating the results, if you know what I mean. And again, I appreciate so much some of your clever sewing requests that you're putting in the comments below. I love to know what you want to see next right here at Mansewing. Oh, hey, are you still in here? I thought you would have been checking out some of those other great videos. You know, we've got a link there, over there. And hey, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you never miss a minute of the action. We'll catch you next time at Mansewing.